Your legs are not just for mobility. They are the single best indicator of how long you are going to live. Today I will explain why your legs fail first and show you the exact steps to reverse this decline and protect your heart. Hello, I'm Dr. Michael Hayes. Today we are going to have a very serious conversation about your legs. When most people think about strengthening their legs, they think about mobility, or perhaps simply being able to walk without getting tired. But I want you to shift your perspective completely. We are not just talking about muscles and bones today. We are talking about your longevity. Your legs are actually one of the most accurate indicators of how long you are going to live. This is because the legs act as an early warning system for the rest of your body. If there is a dangerous condition developing in your heart, your kidneys, or your vascular system, the very first place it will often show up is in your lower extremities. This becomes critically relevant the older you are. If you are over the age of 50, you need to pay close attention to what I am about to share. And if you are under 50, you need to understand this now to prevent irreversible damage later. Think of your body as a complex network of plumbing and wiring. Your legs are the furthest point from the pump, your heart. Because they are so far away, and because they are fighting gravity all day long, they are the first to suffer when your circulation, your nerves, or your metabolic health begins to decline. If you have poor blood flow, it shows up in the feet first. If you have nerve damage from high blood sugar, you feel it in the toes first. So when we look at leg health, we are actually looking at a dashboard for your entire system. If the legs are failing, it is a loud signal that something much deeper is wrong internally. We are going to walk through exactly what those warning signs look like from the bottom of your feet to your calves and explain what they are telling you about your heart, your liver, and your lifespan. Let's start with the first major warning sign, a condition called peripheral neuropathy. This is something that usually arises when you are dealing with diabetes or prediabetes. What happens here is that high levels of sugar in your bloodstream act almost like a toxin. Over time, this excess sugar begins to destroy two critical systems in your body. Your vascular system, which carries your blood, and your nervous system, which carries signals to your brain. You might be wondering, why do I feel this in my feet first? It comes back to distance. You have a very long nerve running from your spine down to your toes. Because this nerve is the furthest away from your heart, it is the hardest to keep supplied with oxygen, blood flow, and nutrition. When the vessels are damaged by sugar, that nerve at the very end of the line starts to starve. This manifests as numbness, pain, tingling, or a burning sensation in the bottom of your feet. Sometimes you might even feel it in your fingertips. This is fundamentally a blood sugar problem. To understand how sensitive your body is, consider this. The normal amount of sugar in your entire bloodstream should only equal about 1 teaspoon. That is all your body wants. If you have diabetes, that amount might only rise to 2 teaspoons. It seems like a small difference, but to your body, that extra teaspoon is toxic. In a healthy body, when you eat sugar or starches, your body uses a hormone called insulin, think of it as a vacuum cleaner, to suck that sugar out of the blood immediately. But if you have been consuming 50 to 100 teaspoons of hidden sugars and starches in your diet for years, that vacuum cleaner stops working. you develop insulin resistance, or your pancreas simply becomes too exhausted to produce enough insulin. The sugar stays in the blood, and that is what rots the arteries and destroys the nerves in your feet. If you are feeling that burning or tingling, your body is telling you that your blood sugar is out of control. Let's move on to the second major indicator, ankle and foot edema. You have likely seen this before. Perhaps you have noticed someone wearing sandals because their shoes no longer fit, and the top of their foot looks puffy and swollen. Or maybe you take your own socks off at the end of the day and see a deep indentation around your lower leg that doesn't go away immediately. This is not a cosmetic issue. This is a significant medical signal. There is a specific test for this called pitting edema. If you press your thumb firmly into the swollen area of your ankle or shin and let go, and it leaves a dent or a pit that stays there for a few seconds, that is pitting edema. When you see this, it is an indication that your circulation is compromised to the point where it is affecting your major organs, specifically the kidneys, the liver, or the heart. Here is why this happens. Your circulatory system is a loop. The arteries push oxygenated blood from your heart all the way down to your toes. Once it gets there, it passes through tiny capillaries and crosses over into the venous system, the veins. The job of the veins is to push that blood back up against gravity to the heart and lungs to get fresh oxygen. If you have pooling fluid in your feet, that return system is failing. It means there is a backup. Think about the stress this puts on your heart. Your heart is a pump, and if the fluid is stagnant and not returning easily, the heart has to work much harder to push against that pressure and inertia. It creates a vicious cycle where the fluid prevents oxygen from reaching the tissues in your feet, and the heart wears itself out trying to compensate. If you see this swelling, do not ignore it, and do not just accept a prescription for a diuretic without investigating the root cause. Your legs are telling you that your heart or kidneys are struggling to manage the fluid load in your body. Now we need to discuss a condition that drives people absolutely crazy, and that is Restless Leg Syndrome. This usually happens at night. You might find yourself lying in bed, trying to relax, but your legs feel like they have too much energy. You might feel a crawling sensation or an overwhelming urge to move them. Some people, myself included in the past, have to wake up at 4 a.m. just to pound on their legs because the sensation is so unbearable. Many people think this is just a genetic quirk or a sign of aging, but it is deeply connected to your diet. When you consume too much sugar, starch, or alcohol, you create a chemical imbalance in your body. This high carbohydrate diet depletes specific vitamins, specifically vitamin B1, thiamine, and magnesium. Without these nutrients, and with the high sugar load, your muscles build up lactic acid. This creates that cramping, restless sensation because the circulation and nerve function are impaired. The immediate problem is the discomfort, but the long-term problem is much more serious: sleep deprivation. Restless leg syndrome steals your sleep. We know for a fact that a chronic lack of sleep shortens your lifespan. It increases your cortisol levels, the stress hormone, which puts you at a higher risk for heart attacks, strokes, and insulin resistance. The remedy here is twofold. First, you must address the deficiency. Vitamin B1 and magnesium are often the missing keys that calm this electrical storm in the legs. But you cannot just take supplements and ignore the cause. You have to stop depleting those vitamins in the first place, which means cutting down on the refined carbohydrates and sugars that are robbing your body of its natural reserves. If you fix the diet, you fix the sleep, and you protect your heart. This brings us to one of the most dangerous conditions on our list, deep vein thrombosis, or DVT. This is essentially a blood clot that forms deep inside the veins of your legs. You might feel pain, swelling, or warmth in one leg, or sometimes you might feel nothing at all until it is too late. The terrifying reality of a DVT is that it doesn't always stay in the leg. If that clot breaks loose, it travels through your bloodstream and can lodge itself in your lungs. This is called a pulmonary embolism, and it is a medical emergency that can be fatal in minutes. We often worry about cholesterol and plaque building up in our arteries over decades, but we need to look at the immediate threats. The reality is that over 90% of heart attacks and strokes are caused by a clot blocking blood flow, rather than just the slow buildup of plaque alone. The clot is the trigger. So why do these form? Your blood chemistry changes based on your lifestyle. Two of the biggest factors that turn your blood into a clotting hazard are chronic stress and, once again, a high carbohydrate diet. High insulin levels from eating too much sugar and starch can make your blood sticky and prone to clotting. When you combine that with inactivity, sitting for long periods without moving your legs, you create the perfect storm for a thrombosis. This is not a condition to take lightly. If you have symptoms in one leg, it requires immediate attention. But more importantly, you want to create an internal environment where clots don't form in the first place. Now, let's look at the plumbing itself. We have two distinct problems that often happen simultaneously: peripheral artery disease and chronic venous insufficiency. Peripheral artery disease is essentially hardening of the arteries, but it's happening in your legs rather than your heart. We often think of clogged arteries as a chest problem, but if you have plaque building up in your legs, you can be certain it is building up everywhere else. The inside of your artery is lined with a single, very delicate layer of cells called the endothelial layer. This layer is crucial for keeping your blood vessels flexible and open. When this lining gets damaged, usually by high blood sugar or inflammation, the body tries to heal it, but the body's version of a Band-Aid is plaque. It lays down calcium and cholesterol to patch the damage. The result? Your arteries become rigid and narrow. This restricts blood flow, and without fresh blood, your tissues begin to starve. On the flip side, we have chronic venous insufficiency. While arteries push blood out, veins rely on your muscles to push blood back. If you are sedentary and not moving enough, the blood stagnates. It pools in the lower legs because gravity is winning. You can actually see this happening if you know what to look for. Look at your lower legs and ankles. Do you see strange discoloration, perhaps reddish or brownish spots? Do you notice that the hair on your lower legs has stopped growing? Is the skin becoming thin, shiny, or fragile? These are not just old age spots. This is a sign that the tissue is suffocating. It is getting insufficient oxygen because the circulation loop is broken. When the blood isn't moving, the heart has to pump harder, and the tissues slowly degrade. If you see hair loss or browning skin on your shins, your body is shouting that the circulation to your extremities is critically low. This brings us to a concept that is often overlooked until it is too late: sarcopenia. This is the medical term for age-related muscle loss. And it is statistically one of the top predictors of mortality as you get older. Many people view muscle simply as something that helps you move or lift heavy objects, but you need to change that definition. Your muscle is actually a massive metabolic organ. It is filled with mitochondria, the energy factories of your cells. Your muscles are the primary furnace where your body burns off excess sugar and glucose. When you lose muscle mass, which happens naturally as we age if we don't fight it, you are losing your body's ability to regulate its own metabolism. You lose that crucial buffer that protects you from diabetes and insulin resistance. This is why frail individuals often have such a difficult time recovering from illness. They have lost their metabolic reserve. Sarcopenia is caused by a combination of factors: the natural aging process, a lack of dietary protein, and a sedentary lifestyle. It is also accelerated by deficiencies in key nutrients like vitamin D, zinc, and magnesium. But the most critical factor is use. You must look at exercise not as a hobby, but as a prescription. Your goal as you age should be to become more fit every single year, to build a buffer of fitness. You are fighting a war against gravity and aging, and muscle is your armor. If you are sedentary, you are essentially dismantling that armor. To live longer, you must prioritize maintaining and building muscle through resistance training and adequate protein intake. It is the only way to keep that metabolic furnace burning efficiently. We have discussed the frightening symptoms, but now we must talk about the solution. And I have to be honest with you, the way the current medical system handles leg health and blood sugar is often backwards. If you go to a typical doctor with these leg symptoms and high blood sugar, the standard protocol is to manage the condition. They will give you medication to lower your blood sugar artificially, or they might even give you glucose tablets in case your sugar drops too low from the medication. This approach manages the downstream effects, but it ignores the root cause. Medicine today is very siloed. You have a foot doctor for the neuropathy, a cardiologist for the circulation, and an endocrinologist for the diabetes. Rarely do they connect the dots. The root cause of the nerve damage, the arterial hardening, and the swelling is almost always insulin resistance caused by a high carbohydrate diet. You do not want to just manage diabetes. You want to attempt to reverse it. There is substantial research showing that type 2 diabetes can be reversed in as little as 10 weeks if you aggressively cut carbohydrates. You need to adopt a low-carb diet and combine it with intermittent fasting, eating only 2 meals or perhaps 1 meal a day. By doing this, you stop flooding your body with sugar, which gives your arteries and nerves a chance to heal. For the specific pain of peripheral neuropathy, that burning in the feet, there are 2 remedies that I've seen work like a charm. The first is benfotiamine. This is a fat-soluble version of vitamin B1 that can penetrate the nerve fat layer and help repair the damage. I recommend taking 4 pills spread throughout the day. The second is alpha-lipoic acid. Taken together and combined with a low-sugar diet, these can help regenerate the nerves and stop the burning sensation. Now let's talk about a mechanical solution for that pooling fluid and poor circulation. We discussed how the veins struggle to push blood back up to the heart, especially when you are sitting. However, you have a secret weapon in your lower leg called the soleus muscle. The soleus is a deep muscle in your calf, and it is physiologically unique. Unlike other muscles that burn stored sugar and get tired quickly, the soleus is designed for endurance. It almost never fatigues. There is a specific movement called the Soleus Pushup that acts as a second heart, pumping blood back up your body and drastically lowering blood sugar, all while you are sitting down. Here is exactly how you do it. You want to be sitting in a chair with your feet flat on the floor. I want you to picture your ankle joint. The movement is simply straightening that joint. You are going to keep the front of your foot, the ball of the foot, and your toes planted on the ground. Then you're going to lift your heel up high and then let it down. Here's the key to doing this correctly. Do not press down hard into the floor. If you press too hard, you engage your thigh muscles. We do not want that. We want your thigh muscles completely relaxed. You should only be using the lower calf. Lightly press against the ball of the foot as you lift the heel. The motion should be smooth and dynamic. Do not jerk it or pause at the top. Just go up and down in a fluid motion. Because this muscle is so efficient, you can literally do this for long periods while watching TV or working at a computer without getting tired. This is critical because in a resting state, your muscles only consume about 15% of your body's energy. Your brain actually consumes more energy than your muscles when you are sedentary. By doing this soleus push-up, you can double or triple that metabolic rate, helping you burn off blood sugar and keep the fluids in your legs moving back to your heart. We need to discuss a physical benchmark that researchers have linked directly to how long you will live. We touched on sarcopenia earlier, that age-related muscle loss, but how do you measure it? There is a fascinating evaluation called the sitting rising test. I want you to try this, but please do it safely. I recommend doing this on a surface that is not slippery, perhaps a carpet or a yoga mat. The test is conceptually simple, but it requires significant core and hip strength. The goal is to lower yourself down to the floor into a cross-legged sitting position, and then stand back up without using your arms, your hands, or your knees for support. It sounds simple, but it is an incredible indicator of your structural health. If you can cross your legs, sit down smoothly, lean forward to get your momentum, and push yourself back up to a standing position without touching the floor with your hands, that is the gold standard. It shows you have the muscular reserve to support your longevity. Now, if that sounds impossible for you right now, do not panic. The value here is not just in passing the test today, but in training your body to be able to do it eventually. There is immense value in learning to be more graceful when getting up off the floor. If getting all the way down and up is too difficult, start with squats. Practice what we call an Asian squat, where you sit down real deep, pushing your hips back. If you cannot go all the way down, use a prop. Put a few books or a yoga block on the floor and practice sitting on that elevated surface, keeping your chest up, and then standing up using only your legs. You can also practice hip switches to improve your mobility. Sit on the floor, lean back on your hands for support if you need to, and let your knees fall to one side like a windshield wiper, and then flip them to the other side. This loosens up the hip sockets. The point is you must challenge your legs to move your body weight against gravity. Whether you are doing deep squats, using a chair to practice single leg rises, or attempting the full sitting rising test, you are building the exact type of functional strength that prevents frailty. If you haven't tried this test yet, find a safe spot and see where you stand, because this is your baseline for improvement. Finally, let's talk about the internal chemistry of your legs. We have discussed the mechanical pumping of the muscles, but we also need to address the fluid balance and the health of the artery walls themselves. If you are dealing with that swelling, the edema, where fluid gets stuck in your ankles, you likely have an imbalance between sodium and potassium. Most people consume far too much salt and nowhere near enough potassium. Your body actually needs a massive amount of potassium, about 4,700 milligrams every single day. Rarely does anyone get that much from food alone. Potassium is critical because it acts as a natural diuretic. It offsets the sodium and pushes that trapped fluid out of your tissues. Now, there is a myth that potassium is bad for your kidneys. The truth is, unless you have late-stage kidney disease, potassium is essential for kidney health. Of course, if you have advanced kidney issues, you must consult your doctor before taking supplements. But for everyone else, increasing your potassium intake, perhaps through a high-quality electrolyte powder, can be the missing link to finally getting rid of that fluid retention in your legs. The second chemical component we need to boost is something called nitric oxide. This is the molecule that your body produces to relax and widen the arteries. When your arteries are relaxed, blood flows freely to your legs. When they are stiff and constricted, circulation fails. So how do we increase nitric oxide? Exercise and getting sunlight on your skin are natural boosters. Breathing through your nose instead of your mouth also increases it. But you can also boost it significantly through your diet. Arugula is one of the top foods for this. Beets are another. I personally use an organic beet juice powder. I like to mix it with cacao, that is raw chocolate powder. The cacao is packed with polyphenols, which work together with the beets to dramatically increase nitric oxide levels. It is a potent combination for your arteries. However, you must be careful not to destroy your body's ability to make this molecule. One of the biggest culprits is antiseptic mouthwash. It kills the good bacteria in your mouth that are required to convert the nitrates in your food into nitric oxide. If you use strong mouthwash, you are effectively shutting down that pathway and constricting your own blood vessels. Avoid the mouthwash, cut the sugar and alcohol, and give your body the raw materials it needs to keep those vessels open and healthy.